Over the last few years, many changes have taken place concerning vehicle safety, licensing, record keeping, and DOT roadside inspections. In this video, we want to examine what's known as Motor Vehicle Out-of-Service Criteria. This criteria is published by the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, or CVSA. If any of the conditions described in this program are present on your vehicle, the vehicle may be deemed out of service by the Department of Transportation. Before we get into any detail, let's take a look at some of the vehicle safety inspection basics required by Section 396.3 to systematically inspect, repair, maintain, or cause to be maintained all vehicles subject to its control. Not only do the regulations specify what inspections and maintenance should be carried out, but Section 396.7 specifically forbids the operation of motor vehicles found by inspection to be defective. What this means is we can't allow or ask our drivers to use a vehicle that we know is defective. If a vehicle is deemed out of service in a DOT inspection, it can't be moved until corrective measures have been taken. If possible, repairs should be made on the spot. If this isn't possible, the vehicle may be towed to the nearest repair facility. Now let's get started by reviewing in detail the out-of-service criteria used by the DOT. If any of the conditions discussed are discovered in a roadside inspection, your vehicle will be placed out of service. A mechanic who is well versed in out-of-service criteria is here to walk us through some of the more common out-of-service items and show us what exactly to look for. Watch as the mechanic points out the safety hazards that will be checked by the Department of Transportation during a roadside inspection. Let's begin with the brake system. The brakes and brake components on your vehicle must meet established federal requirements. The out-of-service criteria for brakes are absence of effective braking action, such as brake linings failing to move or contact the braking surface upon application, missing or broken mechanical components including shoes, linings, pads, springs, anchor pins, spiders, cam rollers, push rods, and air chamber mounting bolts. Loose brake components. These may be air chambers, spiders, or camshaft support brackets. Audible air leaks at the brake chamber, such as those caused by a ruptured diaphragm or loose chamber clamp. Readjustment limits. Any brake with 1/4 inch or more beyond the established readjustment limit will require your vehicle to be placed out of service. Faulty brake pads or linings, including linings or pads not firmly attached to the shoe, evidence of oil seepage into or out of the brake lining brake drum interface, and air brake linings with a thickness of less than 1/4 inch at the center of the shoe. Parking brakes with an inoperable breakaway system on the trailer. Damaged brake drums. External cracks or cracks that open upon brake application, and drums or rotors with parts that are missing or in danger of falling off. Defective brake hoses including damage extending through the outer reinforcement ply, bulges or swelling, audible leaks, cracks or breaks. Substandard brake tubing with cracks, heat damage, breaks, crimps, or audible leaks. A missing or inoperative low-pressure warning device. This device should operate at 55 psi and below, or 1/2 the governor cutout pressure, whichever is less. The out-of-service criteria for brakes are extensive and specific. They have to be. A properly functioning braking system is vital to vehicle safety. Next, let's discuss the steering gear and linkage. The out-of-service criteria for steering mechanisms are any obvious welded repair anywhere in the steering mechanism, any steering wheel exhibiting more play than allowed by Section 393.209. The chart shows the amount of steering wheel play allowed based upon steering wheel size and type of system. Steering columns that have loose or missing U-bolts or positioning parts and worn or faulty universal joints. Any cracks in the front axle beam or any steering component. Steering gearboxes that have missing or loose mounting bolts in the gearbox or mounting brackets. Loose pitman arms, ball and socket joints that have movement of a stud nut under steering load, or that have motion other than rotational of more than 1/8 inch between any linkage member and its attachment point. tie rods and drag links that have loose clamps or clamp bolts, or any looseness in a threaded joint. Also included are loose or missing nuts or bolts on any part of the linkage and any modification or other condition that interferes with the free movement of steering components. Now let's take a look at tires and their out-of-service criteria. Steering axle tires with less than 2/32 of an inch of tread in 2 adjacent major tread grooves anywhere on the tire. For any other tire, the standard is a minimum of 1/32 of an inch tread depth. Remember, WMX standards requires drivers to report on the VCR any tread depth less than 4/32 of an inch. Breaker strips or casing ply showing in the tread. Sidewall with ply cord exposed. Tires that are labeled not for highway use or other markings that exclude use on a steering axle. Visible bumps, bulges, or knots related to tread or sidewall operation. Flat tires, and tires that come in contact with any part of the vehicle and weight exceeding the tire's marked load limit. Wheels and rims go hand in hand with the vehicle's tires. The out-of-service criteria for wheels and rims include bent, broken, cracked, mismatched, or improperly seated lock or side ring. Any cracks in the rim, except an intentionally manufactured slot at a valve stem hole. Disc wheels that have cracks of 3 inches or more in length. Cracks extending between any 2 holes or 2 or more cracks any place on the wheel. Fasteners that are loose, missing, broken, cracked, or stripped. Cracks in the weld that attach either disc wheel disc to rims or tubeless rims to adapters, and any welded repairs including welds on aluminum wheels on a steering axle. Next, let's take a look at lights and lighting devices. Vehicles must meet the following requirements for lights and lighting devices in order to avoid being placed out of service. All sets of lights, including headlamps, brake lights, and tail lights, must have at least one lamp that is operative and visible from 500 feet. Tail lights must be red and steady burning with at least one lamp operative. Turn signals must be operative at all times with at least one lamp on each side at the rear. One lamp on the rear of projecting loads which extends 4 feet or more from the vehicle body. Next on the list is your vehicle suspension. The out-of-service criteria are as follows. Axle parts and members. Any U-bolts or other spring-to-axle clamps that are cracked, broken, loose, or missing. Defective spring hangers or parts that result in the shifting of an axle from its normal position. Spring assembly. 1/4 or more of the leaves broken. Any leaf or portion of any leaf that's missing or separated, or any broken main leaf in the leaf spring. Leaf displacement resulting in contact with a tire, brake drum, or frame. Missing or broken coil or rubber springs. Broken torsion bar springs. Any suspension exhibiting system failure or leaks. Any visible cracks in composite trailer springs, torque bars, radius bars, or tracking component assemblies. Now let's move to the fuel system. Out-of-service criteria for the fuel system are a fuel system with a visible leak at any point, missing tank filler caps, or a fuel tank that isn't securely attached to the vehicle due to loose, broken, or missing mounting bolts or brackets. Next, the exhaust system. Exhaust systems that are defective or malfunctioning are a definite safety hazard. The out-of-service criteria for exhaust systems include leaks forward or directly below the cab and systems located where there is danger of burning, charring, or damaging the electrical wiring, fuel supply, or any other combustible part of the vehicle. The next area we'll discuss is windshield and windshield wipers. The criteria for them isn't as extensive as some other areas, but they're just as important. The criteria are inoperative wipers and missing or damaged parts that render the wipers ineffective on the driver's side. Also, windshields must be clean and free of cracks or other damage that may obstruct your vision. You are also required to have emergency equipment in your vehicle. At any inspection, your vehicle will include a check of the following equipment: 3 red reflective triangles, spare electrical fuses, a charged and rated fire extinguisher, emergency phone numbers, and an accident reporting kit. All of these important items must be in your vehicle at all times. Next, let's examine the out-of-service criteria for the vehicle's frame. Cracked, loose, sagging, or broken frame members. These may permit shifting of the body onto moving parts, indicating an imminent collapse of the frame. They may also adversely affect the support of functional components such as steering gear, fifth wheel, engine, or transmission. Cracks 1.5 inches or longer that are directed toward the bottom flange. Cracks extending from the frame web around the radius and into the bottom flange, or a crack 1 inch or longer in the bottom flange. Improper tire and wheel clearance that causes the vehicle's body or frame to come in contact with a tire or any part of the wheel assembly. Adjustable axle assemblies that have missing pins or locking bars that aren't in a locked position. Safe loading. Any vehicle that is loaded in an unsafe manner is a safety hazard, even if it's in perfect mechanical condition. Always make sure your vehicle has been loaded properly. The out-of-service criteria for safe loading are vehicles with any components including spare tires, vehicle parts, or cargo that may fall onto the roadway. 25% or more of the required tie-downs are loose, missing, or defective. Chains including safety chains on roll-off containers. Breaks, cracks, twists, bends. Stretched links, nicks, gouges, abrasion, wear, or knots. Wire rope, kinks, bird caging, discoloration from excessive heat, electric arcs, corrosion with pitting, and broken wires exceeding the established limits. Cordage, also known as fiber rope. Burned or melted fibers, excessive wear, evidence of a loss of strength such as marked reduction in diameter, or knots formed for the purpose of connecting or repairing binders. Synthetic webbing, cuts, burns, or holes through the webbing. Separation of load-carrying stitch patterns. Knotted webbing, splices, repairs, or other defects. Tensioning devices or hardware that are broken, sprung, bent, or gouged. Fittings or attachments. Load binders or fittings that are stretched or distorted. Obvious reduction of cross-section from wear or corrosion. Hooks with a throat opening beyond the original throat opening. Twisted hooks. Slippage detectable at a wire rope cable clamp or any visible cracks, welds, or discoloration from welding or excessive heat. Anchor points. Broken or cracked side rails, pocket rails, or supports. Rails that are bent where hooks or fittings attach, and floor rings that have broken welds or that are nicked, gouged, worn, twisted, bent, or stretched. Now let's discuss coupling systems including the lower coupler assembly or fifth wheel, the upper coupler assembly, pintle hooks, and drawbar eye and tongue. The out-of-service criteria for coupling systems are as follows. Lower coupler assembly. Improper mounting to frame allowing movement between mounting components. A cracked or broken mounting angle iron or 20% or more missing fasteners. Hazardous mounting plates and pivot brackets. Examples are cracks in welds or parent metals, more than 3/8 inch horizontal movement between the pivot bracket pin and bracket, pivot bracket pins that are missing or not secured, and fastener defective rates above 20%. Sliders with missing or insecure fore and aft stops, cracks in slider components, or more than 3/8 inch movement between the slider bracket and slider base. Operating handles that aren't in a closed or locked position. Cracks in the fifth wheel plate. Locking mechanisms with parts that are missing, broken, or deformed to the extent that the kingpin isn't securely held. Upper coupler assembly. More than 1/2 inch of movement between the upper and lower fifth wheel halves. A kingpin that's either not properly engaged or that can be moved by hand in any direction. And cracked welds or parent metal. Pintle hooks. Loose mounting, missing or ineffective fasteners, insecure latches, cracks anywhere in the pintle hook assembly, visible section reduction or any welded repairs to the pintle hook assembly. Drawbar eye, cracks in attachment welds, reduction that is visible when coupled. drawbar tongue, an ineffective latching mechanism, missing or ineffective stops, more than 1/4 inch of movement between either slider and housing or subframe and attachment, visible cracks or abnormal leaks in cylinders, hoses, or chambers. All of these regulations ensure safe connection of tractor and trailer. Next, let's take a look at van and trailer bodies and floors. The out-of-service criteria for these areas are as follows: upper rails, brakes with complete separation of the flange, cracks or buckling accompanied by missing or loose fasteners at adjacent roof bows, a broken rail accompanied by broken, ineffective, or missing adjacent roof bows, lower rails, separation in the bay area accompanied by a sagging floor, rail, or crossmember, broken rails with loose or missing fasteners at side posts adjacent to the crack, drop frame trailers showing twists, bends, fatigue, or cracks at the drop frame's elevation changes, floor crossmembers, 3 or more adjacent crossmembers that are broken, sagging, or completely detached from the lower rail in the bay area, a broken floor accompanied by protruding freight and sagging crossmembers. Certainly that's a lot of information to remember, but it's very important to pay attention to these conditions. Even if one of these hazards are discovered at a DOT roadside inspection, your vehicle will be placed out of service. So let's review what we've just seen. Brakes and braking systems, steering gear and linkage, tires, wheels and rims, lights and lighting devices, suspension, fuel system, exhaust system, windshields and windshield wipers, emergency equipment, frame, safe loading, coupling devices, and van or trailer bodies and floors. There are many other inspections that are federally required, plus many states have safety and emissions inspections that must be performed throughout the year. Appendix G to 49 CFR Part 396 specifies the condition that a vehicle must be in to pass its annual inspection. These standards are more stringent and must be followed as part of your routine preventative maintenance program. Remember, the job isn't complete until the paperwork is done, because written documentation is the main way we have to prove that we have complied with federal laws, and where applicable, state laws where required. We hope that this training video has helped to simplify the requirements that govern out-of-service criteria. Remember, always take the time to be safe. Thank you.